Philadelphia, Pennsylvania is one of America's most liberal cities, consistently voting around 80% for Democrats in both statewide and presidential elections, which makes it third out of all major cities when you compare citywide vote numbers, beat only by Washington, D.C. and San Francisco. Now, recently, there has been a slight shift in public opinion of the Democratic Party, as many are frustrated with high crime, burdening taxes, and plummeting education.
They described a disconnect between teaching to students' needs and abilities and teaching to a state test.
How can you teach a child at the 9th grade level when he can't even comprehend on the 4th grade level?
The Democrats are losing Philadelphians, and a 7-point swing to the right in recent presidential elections shows that. This fight is even more apparent at City Hall, where local activists like Allante McAuley with Flip Philly Red are sounding the alarm.
My name is John McAuley. I'm with a grassroots organization called Flip Philly Red. We're here to give something different to Philadelphia, something that y'all are not used to because you've been voting Democrat for the mayor's office for the past 70 years. It's not MAGA who's doing all of the carjacking and the shootings.
So to get a better look inside the fight to Flip Philly Red, I invited Allante onto the podcast. So John, thank you for doing this. I'm really excited to have you here on Right Side Rising.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Oh man. Okay. So the fast forward where I'm at now in my life, I guess they'd consider me an activist. I'm a conservative activist. I'm with a grassroots group called Flip Philly Red. You guys have seen me do this introduction at some of these city council meetings that I've gone viral on. And so I own my own podcast called What You Scared to Say podcast, and I've been using this platform to try to influence Philadelphia to vote differently, to think differently in a cultural way, and just try to make positive impact and change on my community. So that's, I'm 38 years old. I have a daughter. So that's just some of the things about me.
Yeah, and I'm so glad to hear that. So exactly, what does Flip Philly Red do?
Okay, so we do a bunch of stuff. We help candidates out, whether it be through doing town halls or meet and greets. We door knock. We register voters. We flag wave. It's anything politically, whether it's radio, messaging, anything politically that you think that could be done. That's what Flip Philly Red is trying to do.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, being a lifelong resident of Philadelphia, which is a very deep blue city, how have you really seen the negative impacts of Democrat leadership?
Where do I start? So when we use these buzzwords about, we use socialism, we use communism, Marxism, all the isms, like a lot of these people really don't know in this these blue cities, what we're talking about sometimes. So it's like you're trying to highlight what the negatives are, and then you're trying to school them, educate them, and engage with them at the same time. So when I look at the policies and I look at, how they've hindered us, we got policies because we got this crazy district attorney, Larry Krasner. We have policies to where you can still up to, I think it might be like $900 or something like that into the store before you can even be prosecuted. So they're allowing, people they have a dollar amount to where you can go into a site like a side of a Rite Aid or something. They a bunch of them closed down here in Philadelphia, or a Wawa, where you can go inside of one of these places and you can still up to a certain dollar amount. If you look at this certain culturally, if you ever board a SEPTA train, things like that late at night, and then you see waves of people, whether they're from 14 years old all the way into their 40s or 50s, smoking marijuana on the SEPTA train like it's normal. You see rapid homelessness on SEPTA. You see people with mental health issues. You see a lot of people still evading fares. And all of this is because of, how they want to defund the police. They don't want real authority in the streets. You see these schools are closing down. You see that if you look at grades 3rd through 8th, you got people graduating with reading proficiency levels at 34% in Philadelphia, arithmetic levels at 25%. So it's nothing nowhere that, we're being taxed. You got the soda tax, and, people are complaining about where that's going. Now we have the Uber tax coming. We have the Amazon tax. You got the city wage tax. You got property taxes. we're not getting the outcomes that we would want to receive for our money going out. So the Democrat platform does not work nowhere across the board.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's so much, obviously with the tax issue, there's so much being taken out of the residents, but there's like no outcome, and there's
Right.
there's no benefits of getting taxed that crazy. So like, what are the tax rates in Philly? I'm not very familiar. What are the tax rates there? Like, are they really high, or there's just a
They have
lot of
some of
different taxes?
it's a lot of different taxes, but they say that I don't have the number directly off my head, but they said Philadelphia has some of the highest, like on average across the country, as far as other cities go. They have like it might be top five, like highest in taxes. I don't have the number right off my head, but I know it's
Wow.
pretty high. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. So you
Mhm.
mentioned the stealing, the dollar amount on stealing before they will legally challenge you.
Right.
Um, Obviously, I think we've seen in 2020 with the BLM riots, which I want to get your opinion on in a second. How was that like? What were people just looting? Like, was that just a time of pure anarchy? Because I know on the news personally, and the news is obviously a little bit misleading. You might not see everything to the story, but I know for me watching on the news what Philadelphia looked like. It looked like a war zone. Can you give me describe that a little bit? Like, what was it like?
Well, my story is pretty deep. I don't know how much you've heard about me, but I was in prison at one point in time in my life.
Hmm.
And I didn't come home like I did 3.5 years in state prison. So I came home from state. I used to live a whole different life. To your audience, to the people who might be watching this, like, well, how do you get from that to this? And we can discuss that as well. But so June 2nd of 2020 is when I came home from state prison. So
Oh
I
my
was
gosh.
yeah, I was at the height of COVID. So this is when I was still a Democrat at the time when I came home. I still used to think like a leftist, I guess you may say. So everybody has that point of life to where something switches. I guess, well, not everybody, but a good portion had their awakening. So from the summer of 2020 to 2024 is when I had my awakening, and so I would see on the news of everything that was going on, COVID, the death ticker, all of this stuff, and I'm hearing about Larry Krasner, and pretty much like I'm just seeing the lawlessness, and I'm seeing you talked about the question that you have coming up about the riots and stuff. So in Kensington, everybody knows about Kensington and Philadelphia. Everybody knows about Kensington across the country. Kensington is very infamous right now for being an open air drug market.
Yeah.
And so distilling, it happened at rates we haven't seen before. So when you have addicts that you're allowing to just do what they want, and you have drug dealers that they're just doing what they want without any repercussions, they were going inside of their mom and pop shops and stealing at an all-time high. So if you're not like a business friendly place to where you're taxing it to where a mom and pop shop can compete with a Walmart, then you're allowing all of this stealing with this leftist ideology that they can afford it. So what? They can't compete, with the Walmarts and the Targets and things of that nature. So yeah, I've seen it. It was crazy. I don't, if anybody thinks that a city could survive off of these things, they're lying to themselves.
Hmm. Yeah. So I mean, that's like nuts just in general.
Yeah.
How, I mean, obviously, that the riots of, summer of 2020 were terrible. Obviously, they were just bad all across the board. But in particular, the deeper blue cities with all these like crazy policies like Philadelphia, I'm sure really, really suffered. And I mean, but now on the point of BLM, I want to get your take. What did you initially think of the movement and the protests and all this stuff? I mean, before it turned violent.
So back, I guess when the whole Trayvon Martin stuff first started and all these police incidents, like I told you, I used to be a leftist. I used to have victim mentality. Initially I thought the Black Lives Matter was something good for, my community. But as I got wiser, as I got more life experiences, as I went through personal hardships on my own, I stopped having this victim mentality. And so the
Hmm.
Black Lives Matter, they prey upon a victim's mentality. I tell people this story, not a story, but I tell people that like I've never been through slavery because this is the Black Lives Matters, like the anger that they keep in my community, right? They always bring up racism or systematic racism. I've never been through slavery. I've never been a slave. I never had to pick cotton. I never been through segregation. I never seen Jim Crow laws. I've never been whipped. I've never been denied a loan or going into a restaurant or any of these things. So why is that my identity? Why don't we teach respect and authority in our community, right? I don't. So when you have police officers, I just spoke about this recently at an event. It's just that why would a police officer want to police a community when he's looked at like a slave catcher, right? So it's this indoctrination that they want that to be my identity. So we're constantly watching slave movies. We're constantly thinking that we're oppressed and we don't have any opportunities. We've had black people in the White House. We got black people that currently sits on the Supreme Court. We got black people that's in Congress. We got a black people who control City Hall right now. And there's nothing that black people have not accomplished in this country. So when he asks when was America great, America's great right now. Because you can be, we talk a lot about being whether the Islamification of America. We talk a lot about that. Well, here's the only country where you can practice any religion you want to. This is a Christian country. But if you want to be Jewish, Muslim, whatever you want, Buddhist, whatever you want to be, you can be that here because in other countries, they're killing you for that. You'll get murdered for that. So Black Lives Matter, what they try to do is they want to keep my community angry and feel like that we're owed something in life instead of us earning everything. They want to say, well, DEI was supposed to be for my community. So they lowered standards for us to be able to get into schools or jobs or things of that nature. But statistically, if you looked at it, it benefited white liberal women more than it benefited any other category, right? So, I'm totally not on board with nothing that Black Lives Matter do. If you see, a lot of them are going to prison. They're being indicted right now for fraud and other charges and things of that nature. So, yeah, total scam.
Well, yeah, I mean, thanks for sharing that now. So,
Yeah.
in contrast, I mean, obviously, to many in the black community, you are an extremely outspoken Republican. Now, why do you think exactly that that the black demographic heavily identifies with the Democrats?
Because of free stuff. Like we could be very nuanced and we could talk about this stuff because black people, from my learning of history, used to be conservative during the Reconstruction period in America. The first black people, when they got into Congress, they were Republicans. When the first black senators, I forget how many it was, maybe it was like 20 something of them, but whatever the number was, they were Republican. If you look at, we believed in a nuclear family. We believed in, a God, father, mother, children, all in one house. It wasn't this baby mom culture that we got. So if you look at how I started changing my life, I looked at politics got a large part of the decisions that I was making in life, the man that I wanted to become. And you look at the policies put in there. And so if you're talking about the 1964, 65 civil rights movement, if you talk about what was it intended and how it was co-opted or whatever into being something totally different. So when LBJ signed the Great Society Act into law or whatever, he pretty much got our men out the house because if you want to get welfare, food stamps, a man can't be in the house because you make it too much money. So women were now dependent or married to the government now. So now, like if you're doing all of this, you're breaking down the black culture or whatever. So it's a lot of different reasons. There's a lot of different policies. The reason why we want to, be why our community identifies or always votes for the Democrats, but we don't receive anything for them. If you ask them, well, you're so mad about Trump, you're so hateful to the Republicans that you don't give a chance to. What do you like about your party? What have they given you? But they replaced your vote. They brought, 20, 30 million illegal immigrants in here to replace your jobs, undercut your wages. What do you get for voting Democrat? But a bunch of white man is the reason why we're suffering.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot of different political reasons over the years. But if you learn the real history over time, it was the Republicans that fought for our right to vote, our 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment. They came for Republicans. The Enforcement Acts came from a Republican president, Ulysses S. Grant. If you look, the Republicans always have fought for the black community.
Yeah, and I think that's so overlooked. Like the Republicans, the Republican Party was founded in a schoolhouse in opposition to the slave-loving Democrats. Didn't wanted
Yeah.
to own slaves freely, but I mean, listen, people need to take a history class. I think that's so big. Now, I believe I saw a clip of you talking about one of LBJ's quotes. I don't know
Yeah.
if this was like if he was like caught on a hot mic or what it was, but I can't quote it exactly because it would be foul language. But
I
it was something
understand.
along the lines of, "I'll have these people voting Democrat for the next 200 years." So does that beg the question that maybe the Civil Rights Act being signed by LBJ was more of a political move rather than actually caring about the rights of black people?
Right. Well, because like I said, it was they took what it was intended for. Um, because what does it do? It protects you. If you're seeking an employment, from discrimination against your race, religion, or gender, or whatever things of that nature. And then so it's just like when we see bills getting passed today. It's always with a lot of pork in them. That's never exactly what the bill
Mm-hmm.
is supposed to be intended for. And so when I talked about a few minutes ago the Great Society Act, when he signed that into law, it expanded on I forget the president's name off the top of my head, but it's during the Great Depression era, when he tried to help America out when we were going through a lot of financial trouble. So he pretty much expanded upon that, and that's when he supposedly had made that quote, right? So when you look at Philadelphia, we've been voting for the mayor's office for a Democrat for the past 70 years. I said that in my opening speech every time I'm at city council because I wanted to stick. And so no, it's of course it was a political play, and so they're kind of looked at as the champions that fought for our civil rights, and that's not true. If you look at it, the percentage of the Republicans versus the Democrats who voted and supported for that, you will see that it's lopsided. If you look at it, the history, it was a Democratic senator who gave the longest filibuster speech ever recorded on the Senate floor opposing our civil rights. That was a Democrat senator that did that, the longest filibuster ever. And so when you know these things, when you learn these things, that they did not want us to have our civil rights, they got the men out of the House, and then you got the Democrat 1994 crime bill that Joe Biden and them championed, and then President at the time Bill Clinton signed into law. And so you gave people with non-violent drug offenses, maybe it might be marijuana, small amounts of cocaine, something like that, and you gave them sentences like you gave somebody who committed aggravated assault or committed murders
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. And so, all of that stems from the Democrat Party.
Yeah. So obviously now it sort of seems like many people in the black community are almost completely ignorant to those facts that you just pointed out now. Um, and I feel like it's really simple for anybody to just if like again if they opened up a history book they'd be able to find this
Right,
out.
right.
Now, but that also points out how the Democrats maybe are better at messaging and better at reaching the black community than the Republicans. How can the Republicans be better at reaching the black community and really how they can educate them and mobilize them?
Embrace the America First agenda. See, people don't know it's a civil war going on inside the Republican Party right now.
Hmm.
We hear this word called rhinos a lot, and what that stands for, Republicans in name only. And so, 78 million people in 2024 voted for MAGA. They did not vote for the GOP. So, President Trump, when he decided that he was going to run for president, he thought about starting a new party or whatever. But, the powers to be, they've said, no, listen, just come on board. They threw their little hissy fits, whatever deals got brokered. He didn't have the time or, to really start a new party. We needed to win when we won. And so he remade the Republican Party in his image. This MAGA, this Make America Great Again, America First agenda. If the Republican Party, you know, the I call it the Mitch McConnell party, the party of the old. If
Yeah.
they would stop fighting uh, this new coalition that President Trump built, because he got Republicans, Democrats, and independents to vote for him. He got
Yeah.
union workers to vote for him. It wasn't just strictly Republicans that voted for him that got him into office. So it's them embracing and being creative, right? If you look at it, when I just gave this example, Nicki Minaj just joined MAGA, right? She's fighting for the persecution of Christians all around the world, especially over there in Africa. And so you didn't see not one GOP county chairman say, I'm gonna go into the black community and I'm gonna embrace that, the Barbs, as we say, her coalition of group, and we're gonna do voter registrations, and we're gonna have Barbie themed or whatever the case may be, tent set up, balloons, whatever. You didn't see like an initiative going into these communities and embracing. You think about how many we talk about the 92% of black women that voted for Kamala Harris. That's a high number. You could have
Yeah.
chopped that number down even more if you decided to make that an initiative. So if you're asking the question, how can the Republicans do better with the black? They done good with the men, better more than so with the women. President Trump got a record number of men, especially here in Philly. We had the highest average. The average across
Wow.
the country was 21%. Here in Pennsylvania, we had 26%. So he had higher with the black men here in Pennsylvania than he had across the country. So it's just more of doing what he's been doing, bringing the manufacturing jobs over here, because men talk money, we talk logic. It's giving us opportunity to where we can make a good living and do more than just the bare minimum.
Yeah. Yeah. So, taking a little turn here, I recently saw that you've announced your candidacy for state office.
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit about your candidacy and what you hope to accomplish.
So I'm running for PA GOP state committee. This is not a lawmaker position, but it is a position of influence. And a lot of people don't know how important these positions are. These positions, they only go to Harrisburg, a few times out the year. But when you have statewide candidates, so the whole state can vote, they do the endorsing. So they meet with these candidates, and why you think you should why you should represent Pennsylvania. And if you're not a constitutional representative, if you're not about this America First agenda, then you shouldn't be trying to seek office right now. And so I am coming into there where I'm not coming. I say this as a zombie vote, like you just do as you told. They tell you who to vote for, who to support. I'm coming in here and I'm asking the tough questions. I want to know about your background. I want to know, have you been working for the government all your life? Or have you been fighting for the people all of your life or majority of your life? It's good to have experiences on both sides, but I want to know, are you for the people? And do you know your constitution, right? And so I want conservative candidates, true conservative candidates. I'm not shy about that. So May 19th, I am running against three other men, five people. Yeah, so I believe it's about one, two, three, four. So about five people I think can go from Philadelphia or whatever. I'm competing against three other men that I have to beat out. And so May 19th, I'm asking for everybody's vote. If you want somebody who's not a zombie, vote. If you want somebody who's going to make sure that you have constitutional representatives uh, supporting Pennsylvania, then vote for me. Like they get a bad rep about, well, they don't really do anything. They don't do it. I want to redefine that. As a state committee person, you need to be doing voter registrations. You need to be doing flag waves. You need to be at your city council, your county council meetings. So I'm coming with a whole new set of ideas and a whole new set of energy that they haven't really seen before.
Yeah, listen, I'm excited, probably as
Yeah.
excited as you for this. I think we really, really need some new people in our committees, in our local state offices. Listen, man, I'm all for your candidacy. So,
Thank you, man.
yeah, I'm happy to, really happy to hear that because, listen, a lot, and if you want to talk a little bit about the Republican Party and, the zombie
Yeah.
voters and all these, it's really demoralizing. And it really does not engage these new voters because people want to see change. They want to see these people who were elected to represent them, who they voted for. They want to see them making real change. They want to see them obviously giving back to the people who voted for them. So I'm so happy about your candidacy, and I think it's a
Thank,
breath of fresh air, and I think we need it. I think we need it.
thank you. I appreciate that a lot. It's it's been a lot of the apathy is real. A lot of people in the party are demoralized and they feel like they didn't get, what they voted for. And I try to say, listen, President Trump is one man. It takes the local level to do their part. And what he did, he extended our time for us to be able to fight a little bit longer before our sovereignty as a nation is gone, right? They want to rip up our constitution. They want a new world order. The Republicans, the old guard, they're waiting MAGA out. They feel that once President Trump is gone, that our influence and our power will be gone as well. And so a lot of people, they are sick of the process of the people who don't have a backbone, the people who won't speak up. And so, it's a fight. I tell people this, you do the best you can do, and you leave the rest, you let the Lord just, handle the rest. And when it's all said and done, you want the Lord to be able to say, job well done, my good and faithful servant. And so I'm just doing my part. I don't, if I get to see the change in my lifetime, great. If I don't, I know I was a soldier for God. I know in my heart that I did the best I could do for him, and then I passed the baton when it's my time to pass the baton.
Yeah, it's so powerful, obviously, and it gives us a little bit of a reminder that God's always first, and we need to let it, him take over in some aspects. We do the best we can do, but, really by taking initiative, how can we, try to maybe erode what was the past of the Republican Party, like the people who are, kind of holding us back right now? How can we try to really get rid of that and reshape the Republican Party? Because I know President Trump has done a wonderful job at, doing his best in reshaping the party, but how can we, the voters, these people in the grassroots of the Republican Party, how can we really try to reshape the party into, maybe not playing the game of politics all the time and actually taking initiative? How can we kind of do that?
That's a great question, by the way. It's two main things that we can all do, because everybody has, whether you go to school, you got a family, you got your job. So not everybody has the same affordability or time to be able to do everything, right? But you find what you can do, what you can give a small portion of your life to. But there's two things. When I believe in what the Republican Party was founded and intended to be. All right. I've embraced the conservative ideology. I embrace conservative politics as well. With that being said, I do not go into the booth and do straight R down the line. That doesn't mean I'm voting for the Democrats either.
No, yeah.
Right. But I'm looking at, if it's Republicans involved, like I said, I'm asking questions, because I want to know, are you really a constitutional representative? Are you a real patriot? Are you just another rhino? And you look at somebody's voting record, like a Brian Fitzpatrick, Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick, who's out of Bucks County. He votes with the Democrats more times than he votes with us.
Really?
He's voted for, look him up. Look up the things that he's voted for that conservatives will be pissed about. And they'll tell you, he was endorsed by, I'm not going to name the group, but he just was endorsed by a Republican faction here in Pennsylvania, right? And I'm like, what has he done to earn that endorsement? Because every time that we needed him to vote and stand with us, he's went the other way on important bills. Okay, so look up his Liberty Score record. So this is the research that people refuses to do. Now, what can people actively do? You're going to have to start getting involved and they call this the precinct strategy, to where you're going to have to become a precinct committee member. So and here in Philly, they call them ward leaders or committee members. So when you're doing the groundwork, the local work, this is what's important. When you're endorsing candidates, when you're meeting with candidates, when you're teaching people, listen, I need you to go to the voting booth. I don't want you to vote by mail, because voting by mail is a vector for fraud. But it's such a nuanced discussion what you're asking me. So become a precinct committee member, become a state committee member. And that's just like at the smallest level of, elections. That's not being a lawmaker, but it's a level of influence. That's a seat at the table. So I would tell people that, I'm going to reiterate it again, become a precinct committee member or a state committee member, look up what those roles entail, and stop voting R straight down the line, because you got people like G.T. Thompson, that's another congressman or whatever, that he has a horrible Liberty Score, but he's a Republican. But he doesn't vote with the Constitution. He votes like a liberal votes. But you would think, you're a Republican. Why would you do that? you know. So so stop voting R down the line and become a member, get involved. That's the two main things you could do. Anything else is extra and welcome, but do those things.
Yeah. So obviously, I know we have the primary elections coming up very soon. I'd argue that that's just as important as the general.
Yeah.
Now, have you been doing any work in the primaries? Obviously, I know you're running, for committee
Yeah.
yourself. How have you been doing anything for the primaries or anything of that nature?
Well, yes. So we have well, I haven't really started the message yet on the candidates that's running here in Philadelphia. I'm watching, like I'm just telling you, I want to see what their policies are, what their principles are, what they believe in, what their messaging is like. And so before I can say, guys, we got to get behind this person. There's one woman that I like a lot. Her name is Robin Bird. She's running for state rep. Um, I believe she has a great shot at beating Joe Hohenstein. I think she is, she's going to represent us well. She is MAGA. She is America first. So look out for Robin Bird. I can say that right now. But this governor's race is extremely important.
Hmm.
Uh, we have uh, we have Josh Shapiro, who we need to get out the governor's mansion, because if we
Yeah.
don't, and if they get the trifecta, if they are able to take the state senate, then they already have the state house. But if they take the state senate and they get the trifecta, and then we can look like Oregon very soon.
Or
And
Washington.
Washington is gonna be extremely bad. So it I've been trying to tell people, because Philadelphia, it's like we don't expect to win Philly here, but we want to do just as good as what President Trump did, or we want to do better. So getting Stacey Garrity's name recognized here has been something that I've been trying to do. I went viral at one of my city council meetings when I said her name at the end after I was done that LBJ quote, and I said her name at the end, and millions of people have heard it. So it's just trying to get name recognition, get people to understand where her policies are, and get people to understand that this is the better option, and not just because Josh Shapiro is bad, because I can't stand that messaging, because that's not going to make Democrats and independents vote. Us Republicans know he's bad, but how do you get the same coalition that President Trump got? You have to talk about the no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. You got to champion some of these things. You got to talk about drill, baby, drill. You got to talk about our farmers. You have to talk about the crime that's going on down here in Philadelphia. You got to talk about all of these predatory taxes that we're receiving right now. You got to talk about our energy bills and things like that. So she's talking about drilling, for our natural gas, something that Josh Shapiro, he doesn't do. And the way he does do, he ships it out, and we subsidize other states that surround us for their energy because we're on the same grid. So it's just about, getting Stacey Garrity's name and messaging out there. But far as the primaries go, I mean, she's the only candidate on the ballot, for to be a governor for us. But you know what they say, if you don't have good turnout during the midterms, that's an indication of how the general might go. So we want to see a good turnout. We want to see morale up. We want to see good energy going into the to the primaries, excuse me, so we can have a good turnout during the general in the midterms.
Hmm. Yeah, and interestingly enough, you mentioned that I think that Stacey Garrity is the only person on the ballot for the Republicans at the primaries. Um, I have been hearing some things about Mastriano, I
Hmm.
guess being a write-in or whatever,
Yeah.
um, which I think is really ineffective. I don't think that that's something that could work for governor. But
Right.
how do you think that that's hurting? I mean, like these conflicting these candidates and everything that are trying to like almost fight each other within our own party. I mean, that's got
Mhm.
to be hurting
Yeah.
our turnout and our numbers collectively.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, you have your right to vote for whoever we work for this, right? To vote for whoever you would like to see happen. The thing is, he could have got himself on the ballot, and nobody was stopping him from getting the required signatures that he needed. So we can have. If you wanted to have a true primary, we could have did that, but he decided not to do that. And what he decided to do was write this ghost writing campaign, right? So if you don't win or whatever, it wasn't like, you can say that give him any blame or anything, but he can also stick it to the PAGOP, because I don't know if you know that when he ran for governor last time, that it was rumored that the PAGOP, it was rumored that they worked against him, right? For what reasons we can, we can talk about that, maybe at another time. It was rumored that they didn't believe in him. So if he wins the write-in campaign, he gets to say, "Great, I won that." If he loses, or hurts Garrity's campaign, it's like a stick it to the PAGOP for allegedly working against him, some few years back, right? Um, the morale is down right now in the state, and I've been trying my best to pick it back up. It's a lot of different reasons why the morale is down. This write-in campaign doesn't help. When you have the divisiveness, the nastiness, the things just being said, let's say if you wanted to do a write-in campaign, fine, right? But why does it have to be so nasty and divisive? Why do you have to go on her every post and say, things that you cannot take back? Like if I saw him up, like this is what your supporters said about me, and you didn't come out as a leader and tell them the tone is down. That is irresponsible, and he knows what his supporters are saying about Stacey Garrity, and he has yet to make a statement saying, "Tone this down. This is going too far." So you have people who will write in Mastriano on May 19th, and once he loses, it's people who will refuse to come on to the Garrity campaign and help her win in November, because they're going to feel some type of way that they didn't get their candidate across the finish line. And so it's a waste of time. You can vote for who you want to vote for. I don't think logically it makes any sense when they talk about Josh Shapiro having 30 plus million in the bank when he has more of the name recognition. This is an all hands on deck situation. And we need every Republican. Before we even get to the Democrats and the independents, we need every Republican on board behind this one candidate that got herself on the ballot. Makes sense to me.
Yeah. So obviously, a little bit earlier, you did mention your larger presence on social media that you've been building lately. How has that kind of helped you in getting your message out and, in your mission to flip Philly red?
Yeah, it's been huge. But see, people see when you go viral, they don't see, like, I've started this mission, my life, politics wasn't on my bingo card, but I've been putting in work since 2024, President Trump's, victory year. And so that was a lot of flag waves. That was a lot of, we was door knocking.
Yeah.
We were doing a lot of voter registrations. That's a lot of town halls. And so, it doesn't happen overnight, but it was all worth it. And it's not about the destination, but it's about the journey. And in that journey, I was becoming a better man and a better leader, and just a better listener, what the people want. And God was telling me, listen, I'm going to use you for everything that, your talents are, to go back to your community and tell them everything that they thought was a lie. Everything that they've been brought up to believe is a lie. And so God has been using me as a vessel for that mission. And so, and I give credit to the small accounts. Thank you to the big accounts, that posted me, but it's the small accounts that got me there. It was the small accounts that was there with me day in, day out when the post wasn't as popular or the post wasn't as sexy. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't as flashy or, a million view post. And so the small accounts got me to the bigger accounts, posting me. And all of that, now that I have so many eyes, that comes with a responsibility to make sure that my messaging is on point, that I'm clear, I'm concise, that I know what I'm talking about, and I've earned it. The Patriots, if I was saying anything wrong, they'll let me know. If they say, Allante, that's not it, they'll tell me. And so, I'm blessed to, I have a ways to go. I don't consider myself a big accountant yet, but like I'm a tweener now. Like I'm right there in between. So,
Yeah.
a few more big posts, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, I want to wish you all the success in everything you do and all your goals and your mission of, hopefully flip Philly red. I mean, we'll get there one day. It's going to take a lot of work, but I believe in it, and I wish you all the success with that. Now, just to wrap it up, what is your message for any, young conservatives who may be afraid to speak out, or even anybody in the Black community who may hold a similar viewpoint to you and they really are afraid of, that pushback and the drawbacks of that? I mean, what's your message to those?
my mom told me when I learned a lot of lessons, obviously being in prison. But when I was still in county jail, and maybe the next time if I'm blessed to be on your platform again, we can talk more about that journey. But when I was in county jail, my mom said something to me on the phone. She said, "Where you're going in life, you can't take everybody with you." That stuck with me. So I want to tell every young, conservative or anybody that's thinking about leaving that Democrat plantation is you're going to lose a lot of friends and you're going to lose a lot of family and people are going to turn on you. But people don't talk about the other part of this. You gain a lot as well. They don't talk about what you gain. I've gained a whole new set of people who has values that align with mine, morals that align with mine, and I'm at peace. God has replaced every single person that I have lost. So if you can understand that, know what you're getting into, um, that you're going to get pushback. You're going to lose. I don't speak to my father anymore because of this. But
Oh, really?
yeah, but I had to
Wow.
choose. I had to choose what was right in my heart. It has got to a point where it was so toxic that um, he didn't agree with what I stood for with supporting President Trump, the America First agenda, MAGA, and these conservative values that I instilled in me. And so we no longer speak. It got that nasty. But
Wow.
it's that real. Like you will lose people in your immediate family, maybe. But if you can be strong enough, if you can embrace God enough and get into that Bible and find what works for you, um, you know, that's the only way I can tell you that because there's not no sexy answer to this. You know what I mean? It's you're gonna have to pick up your cross and you're gonna have to understand it. You're gonna have to give up your old life for your new life. But the new life is beautiful though. The new life is it's I never had so much more peace in my life and ambition. And if you work on yourself as a person, um, the journey is amazing. You will become a better man or woman, a better son, a better father, a better student, a better leader, better listener. You will go through so many different walks. It's like, God will open up so many more doors to you. I didn't think I was going to be here, Gino. Like I didn't think I would be
Wow.
talking to you on your platform. I didn't think I would be, going viral. And I'm doing all. I'm like I got responsibility. Do you know how it feels as an adult to know that people rely or depend on you to deliver a message? That's the correct message. That's a great feeling. So listen, pick up your cross. Not everybody can go with you, and keep God.
Well, thank you, Allante, so much. I love this interview, and surely the viewers will let us know how they think of it, and I'm sure it's going to be positive. But I just want to thank
Thank
you
you.
again for joining me on my podcast, and thank you everybody for tuning in. And this is Allante McAuley. He is running for state committee. He is, I mean, listen, if you're in his areas and you're in his precincts, please go out and vote for him. I give you my full endorsement for everything you want
Thank
to
you.
do.
Thank you, man. It means a lot.
Of course. All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in, and Allante, thank you for joining us today.
Yes, sir.